Imagine your family, your parents, your partner, your children. Now imagine them being sold away, one by one, with no warning and no chance to say goodbye. This wasn't just a tragic side effect of American slavery. It was a deliberate, systematic practice designed to break spirits and maximize profits. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most brutal aspects of this dark chapter in history: the forced separation of enslaved black families. Before we dive in, it's important to understand the legal framework, or rather, the lack of one. In the eyes of the law in the antebellum South, enslaved people were not considered human beings with rights. They were property, or chattel. This meant that their marriages were not legally recognized, and their family bonds held no legal weight. A slave owner could sell a husband from his wife, a mother from her child, or siblings from each other as easily as they could sell a piece of livestock. This legal dehumanization was the bedrock upon which the entire system of family separation was built. So, why did they do it? The primary driver was, unsurprisingly, economics. The domestic slave trade was a massive, brutal industry. As agriculture, particularly cotton, expanded westward into new territories like Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas, the demand for labor skyrocketed. Slave traders would purchase people from the older, upper South states like Virginia and Maryland, where the soil was becoming less productive, and force them on grueling marshes south and west. This was often called the Second Middle Passage. These sales were driven by pure profit motive. A young, strong man might fetch the highest price at a market in New Orleans, while a woman of childbearing age could be sold to another plantation to produce more enslaved laborers. Children were often seen as a separate commodity. They could be sold individually once they were weaned, typically around the age of 5 or 6, or even younger. The grief and trauma of the parents were completely disregarded. It was business. But it wasn't just about economics. Family separation was also a powerful tool of control and psychological warfare. The constant threat of being sold away from loved ones created a pervasive atmosphere of fear and instability. It was a way to punish those who were deemed disobedient or who dared to resist. Imagine being told that if you didn't work harder, or if you spoke out of turn, your child would be sold. This threat was a horrific but effective method for enforcing compliance and crushing any seeds of rebellion. By destroying the family unit, slaveholders aimed to destroy the core of personal identity, community, and hope. A person who has lost everything is, in their cruel calculation, easier to control. The process of separation itself was devastating. Sales could happen at any time. A family might be working in the fields together one day, and the next, a trader arrives. People were inspected, like animals, their teeth checked, their bodies prodded. Then, the deals were made. The scenes that followed were heart-wrenching. Historical accounts and narratives from formerly enslaved people described mothers clinging to their children, husbands and wives desperately embracing for the last time, and the haunting cries that echoed as loved ones were chained together and marched away, never to be seen again. For example, the famous abolitionist and formerly enslaved man, Frederick Douglass, was separated from his mother as an infant. He only saw her a handful of times in his life, when she would walk 12 miles at night after a full day's work, just to lie with him for a few hours before having to walk back to be in the fields by sunrise. He barely knew her, and her eventual death was reported to him as if it were a minor event. This was a common experience. designed to prevent the formation of strong mother-child bonds. Solomon Northup, whose story was told in 12 Years a Slave, described the auction of a woman named Eliza and her 2 children. He wrote of the mother as frantic shrieks and agonizing prayers, as she begged the buyer not to separate her from her children. The buyer purchased her but refused to buy her daughter. And Northup wrote, "The coffle was started, leaving the miserable mother in a state of grief and despair." This was a daily reality across the South. What was the impact on those left behind and those taken away? For children, the trauma was immense. They were robbed of their parents, their primary source of love, protection, and cultural transmission. They were often raised by other enslaved women on the plantation or were forced to fend for themselves from a young age, accelerating their entry into brutal field labor. The psychological scars of this abandonment and loss lasted a lifetime. For adults, the pain of losing a spouse or child was a wound that never healed. Many spent the rest of their lives wondering what happened to their family members. They lived in a state of perpetual grief. The family unit, which in any culture is a source of strength and resilience, was constantly under attack. Yet, despite this systematic destruction, enslaved people showed incredible resilience. They fought back in every way they could. They formed new kinship networks on plantations, creating fictive kin where non-relatives became aunts, uncles, and cousins to provide a support system for children who had lost their parents. They passed down family names, stories, and traditions orally, trying to keep memories alive. They whispered promises to find each other again if they were ever freed. And after the Civil War and emancipation, one of the very first things that newly freed people did was try to put their families back together. They embarked on incredible journeys, traveling hundreds of miles on foot, following rumors and scraps of information. They placed advertisements in newspapers. One ad from 1865 reads, "Information is wanted of my wife. Her name is Reiki. She was sold from me 2 years ago." Another says, "I wish to inquire for my children." The mother of these children was sold to Texas. These ads are a heartbreaking testament to both the scale of the devastation and the enduring power of family love. While some were miraculously reunited, many more never found their loved ones. The legacy of these broken families has echoed through generations. The systemic assault on the black family structure during slavery created deep-seated social and economic challenges that continue to affect communities today. It's a wound on the soul of a nation, one that hasn't fully healed. Understanding this history is not about assigning guilt. It's about acknowledging the truth. It's about recognizing the profound strength and resilience of people who endured the unimaginable and still held on to hope and love. It's about understanding the deep historical roots of present-day inequalities. The story of the forced separation of enslaved families is a painful but essential part of American history, reminding us of the human cost of treating people as property and the unbreakable power of the human spirit to seek connection and love against all odds. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into history. See you next time.